What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast. My name is Kyle Dabra.
What's going on, everybody? Kevin Valentin here, other half of the podcast. What's going on, Kyle?
Not much, bro. I got the Eagles and the Texans game in the background, so it'll probably be something that you and I are probably going to monitor throughout the episode. I mean, we might make a mention of it when the game goes final, but I gotta say, bro, Houston's kind of giving Philly a run for its money here. I mean, at this point in the recording, it's 21-14 Philly. AJ Brown just got a touchdown a couple minutes back, but apparently Dameon Pierce is just running all over this Eagles defense.
Yeah, he's got over 100 yards rushing. The last 3 running attempts before this last one were about like 8-9 yards a clip. He's just getting big chunk plays. Philly's front four is getting abolished.
Getting abolished?
Dude, I said what I said.
That's a new one.
I was going to say demolished, but then I was like, I need something more drastic because it's ridiculous. I mean, obviously now he goes and gets a tackle for a loss, but bro, we're talking like the run lanes are the Red Sea, and he is just carving them up.
You could probably park a car in some of those lanes, apparently.
Legitimately, bro. It's kind of crazy. But, I mean, hey, my girl's dad said the same thing. He kind of, didn't expect him to lose, but he did say Philly tends to play down to their opponents in a lot of instances, especially teams like this, and Houston being the worst team in the league. It is not a good look if they were to even come close. So Philly needs to blow this wide open.
I mean, I still picked the Eagles just in my family pick'em league. I wasn't going to pick against Philly. I would have been insane in picking the Texans just because you still got to favor the Eagles just because they're undefeated. But it's like, I wouldn't have been necessarily surprised if they were to lose that game because you're on 3 days rest. You're playing down to competition like the Texans, and bro, we already know what the Texans are like. They're the worst team in the NFL. So it's like, just saying,
they don't look it tonight.
No, especially, bro. I think it's the uniforms. It's those alternate uniforms that they got with the shiny red helmets.
With the metallic helmets. Yeah, that's their debut for their helmet this year.
It's a nice helmet. It's a nice helmet
for sure.
So, and the red unis. I always like those with the Texans. I don't think they've ever went wrong with those red uniforms. They're kind of slick. So it's just too bad that they're like the worst team in the league has them. It's the only thing.
What are you gonna do?
But it's the Texans, bro. So, but Kev, we got an action-packed agenda. We got Week 9 in the NFL. We got 4 to 5 games to cover, and then we got the World Series to cover, which has been legitimately back and forth. So, as of right now, Game 5 is being played. So when you guys hear this in the morning, the game will have already gone final, and then you guys will figure out who's up 3-2 in the series. It could be the Phillies, it could be the Astros. All we know is that this series is going to go 6 games, potentially 7, and the last 2 games are going to be played in Houston. And Kev, I think it was something that you and I were talking about last week. Like, we saw the potential of that World Series going 6-7 games, and I think it's living up to expectations at this point. This has actually been a really solid World Series.
100%. I love the offensive power on both sides. The pitching hasn't necessarily been something impressive outside of the no-hitter that was played yesterday, because obviously in Game 3, the Phillies shut them out and they actually went absolutely apeshit. But, obviously you go back to Game 2, Game 1, it goes back and forth. They're scoring runs, which is an entertaining game. Yesterday was the only one where 0 runs were scored. So that was the boring game. But when you see a no-hitter, especially one in the World Series, even if it's a combined no-hitter, it's entertaining. So
it's impressive. It's just,
yeah, it's historic, honestly.
Houston's pitching staff just absolutely locked it down in Game 4. And to be honest, they kind of had to, because in Game 3, bro, Houston's pitching staff got wrecked. It really didn't matter who they put out on the mound. The Phillies were just hitting dingers the entire night. I mean, they won 7-0, and then I guess Houston kind of got back at them, throwing a 5-0 shutout the next day. So it really just has been back and forth. I think
that's all you can ask for in a World Series, man.
I mean, neither team has won 2 games in a row. I think Houston lost Game 1, so the Phillies won. Houston got it back in Game 2. Oh wait, no. Yeah, then Phillies won Game 3, and then Houston won Game 4. So we'll see what happens with Game 5. But we'll kind of get to that point when that game goes final. And that will be at the end of the episode anyway. But like I said, we got some solid games to go over in the Week 9 slate for the NFL. The first one we are going to go over, it involves our teams. We got the Colts and the Patriots. It's a 1 o'clock game on Sunday. And when we look at this matchup, you know, let's focus on the Colts here. They're sitting at a 3-4-1 record. Sam Ellinger is the quarterback moving forward for them, just because Matt Ryan is pretty much out for the rest of the season after the Colts shut him down. And then when we look at the Patriots, they're sitting at a 4-4 record. They had a very nice win against the New York Jets on the road last week. And at that time, the Jets were 5-2 at the time. So it was one of their better wins of the year so far. So New England looks to keep up their winning ways in this one. So it could be a pretty interesting game. We'll kind of see how it plays out. But Kev, to kick this one to you, we got the Colts going up against the Patriots in Gillette Stadium on Sunday. Who do you think is going to come out on top and why?
Well, Kyle and I do this every time we play each other. Talk a lot of smack, barely text each other throughout the game. And if we do, it's usually at the end. But I got to go with the Patriots, man. I don't really have faith in Sam. Bill Belichick always finds ways to actually dominate opposing quarterbacks when it's his first time playing them, whether it's an undrafted free agent, whether it's a rookie. It really doesn't make a difference. It's more so of his veteran presence, the defense that he has in front of him, and of course the talent that he has around him. Just always finds a way to make it a hell for the opposing quarterbacks going into New England. And this is in Foxborough, so this is going to be one hell of a game. A lot of smack talk. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor's been hurt. We just traded Nyheim Hines. I mean, our offensive line has been piss poor. The defense shows, like I said, flashes, as I've said all year. Like, we have some good pressures. We'll make a good play. But overall, I just don't necessarily have faith that the offense is going to be able to do anything competitive against this defense. I mean, they forced, what was it, Kyle? 3 turnovers against Zach Wilson last week, and at least Zach Wilson has a season and a half under his belt, if not maybe a little bit more than a full season, because he was hurt last year and this year. But Sam's got one start to his name, and Sam did good things last week. Sam did some bad things, but that offensive line is just horrific. And I don't necessarily have the faith that they're going to be able to stop Judon. I don't know if he's going to be able to get the ball away from the secondary. And of course, we have pretty much one of the worst rushing offenses in the NFL. So I don't have a lot of faith for my team. Call it negativity, call it betting on the statistics, but it's just genuinely, now that Marcus Brady has been fired, Frank Reich is, assuming all rights to the offense. Goodums. Just so you guys can see in the camera, that's my excitement for everything that's to come offensively for this team come up on Sunday. But I'm going to go with the Patriots by 10 to 14 points. I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts don't score more than 10 or 14 themselves, just because, again, the ineptitude of this offense has been consistent, if anything else. But, yeah, I got the Pats winning this one, and I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah, Kev, I agree with you 100% on this one, too. I got the Patriots winning this one. And it's not just because, the Patriots are my team and this is a run back of the Colts and Patriots rivalry. I just don't see how the Colts can go up to Foxborough and get this win on Sunday, just because when I look at the matchup of Sam Ellinger going up against that Patriots defense, it's not a favorable one. When I look at what the Patriots did last week to the Jets against Zach Wilson, it was a nightmare scenario for the Jets. I mean, Zach Wilson got picked off 3 times in that game. And I know that Zach Wilson is in his second year as an NFL quarterback, but I thought the defensive game plan that the Patriots pitched against Zach made him look like a rookie again. And it's not the first time where Zach has really struggled against the Patriots. And now with the Patriots going up against Sam this week, unless the Colts make a really solid game on running the football, they're going to have to rely on Sam to be able to make some plays, and I don't think it's going to happen against that Patriots secondary. They're really opportunistic. The Patriots have been bringing solid pass rushes the entire year with Matt Judon and Dietrich Wise, who have been both having solid years on getting to the quarterback this year. And I just don't think that, by and large, the Colts are going to be able to score a lot of points here. And then when I kick it over to the Patriots offense has been shaky this year. There's no other way to say it. They've been really turnover prone. Mac Jones definitely looks like he's going through a sophomore slump this year. And even though that they won that game against the Jets last week, it wasn't really convincing. There were multiple times where that Patriots defense was able to get that offense turnovers and a limited field to work with, and they ended up cashing in on field goals instead of touchdowns. So even with all that said, the Patriots are sitting at a 500 record, and with the way that they've looked this year, that's actually kind of a surprise to me, because realistically, they could be like a 3-5 team. So taking a 4-4 record into week 9 is pretty solid, all things considered. We'll see what happens going against the Colts, but I think by and large, with the way that that defense has been playing, I think that's going to be the the primary factor and the reason why the Patriots win that game on Sunday against the Colts. I think the Patriots offense is going to maybe score somewhere around maybe 20 to 24 points. I don't think it's going to be that, like, they're not going to light up the scoreboard if anybody's thinking that, just because Mac has been inconsistent. Ramondre Stevenson has been a bright spot for the Patriots offense so far, and he'll probably get a decent amount of touches. We'll see what happens with Damian Harris. He's kind of up in the air. He's questionable going into Sunday. But by and large, I think the Patriots are going to maybe get 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 on the board, and then, add a field goal on top of that. And I think when it comes to the Colts, I think they're going to be lucky to score 14 to 17 points. So I think the Patriots are going to win this one by at least a touchdown. I'd probably say 2 possessions. They might win this one by 10 points when it's all said and done. If I had to throw a score on it, I'm going to say the Patriots win this one 24 to 14. They would bump up to 5-4 on the record. They would bump up to 5-4 with their record. They would get above 500. And, we'll see what happens with them for the rest of the year, just because that AFC East is really competitive this year. But Kev, when it comes to the Colts, and I hate to kind of put it this way to you, I think the Colts are going to be pretty much on a downward slide here. It's not that I don't have faith in Sam Ehlinger. It's just that offensive line has been a major point of contention this year. Their run game is not effective. Jonathan Taylor's status going into this game is not that good. We'll see whether or not that he plays, and he might even be limited if he were to play. It just seems like the Colts are falling apart, and I don't know how they're going to be able to kind of get back into a winning way, essentially. It just seems like this team has nowhere to go but down. And I know that's really pessimistic, but I don't think it's a good matchup for them against the Patriots on Sunday. And I just see the Patriots coming out on top in this one.
Yeah, normally we have friendly banter. Both our teams are at least solid. Your team more solid than mine, at least on a consistency basis. But for my team to literally just have all this hype to start the season and basically just be the epitome of shit, and then our offensive line that we pay the most money to in the league, basically be, if not the last pass protecting team to bottom tier. It's infuriating. And, a matchup like this is something that the two of us have talked shit to each other for years. And this has been quite the long friendship, and it's always been friendly, fun banter. Have you beaten us the majority of time? Yeah, but our teams were more competitive. And, at this point, I just don't feel that that's the same anymore. It sucks because, we're both diehard fans, and, you want to see your team go out there and play its best football. But this year, we both haven't played the greatest, but Belichick has always found a way to go out there and either scrummage up a win, get a gritty win, play tough defense, something of that magnitude, to where Frank Reich is the complete opposite. It's just like he is always outcoached week in and week out. But I can go on and on about this one for fucking hours, so let's just move on before I have me a crying fit and I take out the violin.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Colts are only a couple ways from giving you an aneurysm at this point. So,
yeah,
I'll kind of wrap it up with this. They're in trouble. They're in trouble, and I don't see how it's going to improve anytime soon. But with that said, we are going to transition to our next game, and that is going to be a pretty interesting matchup that's going to take place in Atlanta, and that's going to feature the Los Angeles Chargers and the Atlanta Falcons. So, just to kind of give you guys a quick preview of this game, we got the Chargers sitting at a 4-3 record. They are coming off of a bye week, and the week before that, they effectively got smacked by the Seattle Seahawks. They gave up over 35 points in that game. And not only that, just injuries with the Chargers has been a focal point for them this season. And granted, going into this week, I thought they would have been a little bit healthier, but Keenan Allen's having some lingering issues with that hamstring. Mike Williams is dealing with a high ankle sprain. J.C. Jackson's out for the rest of the year. So the Chargers, from just a unit perspective, they're dinged up. And then when we look at the Falcons are in first place in the NFC South 8 weeks into the year, or going into week 9. And I don't think anybody had that on their potential, I guess, results, going into the month of November. So it is really kind of a surprise that the Falcons have been this solid so far, and they're looking to extend their winning ways after what Kevin and I considered probably the best game, or one of the best games of week 8 this past weekend, when they won an overtime winner against the Carolina Panthers by the score of 37-34. I believe that was the score. That was the final score of that game. So this will be an interesting matchup. This is probably a game that Kevin and I wouldn't have really circled on our calendar, but with the way that both teams have been playing so far, this is going to be a pretty solid matchup when it takes place on Sunday. So, Kev, to kick this one to you, we got the Chargers going up against the Falcons this weekend. Who do you think is going to win in Atlanta and why?
I mean, I just want to be transparent. Both teams are not in the position that Kyle and I had predicted to start the season. We thought Atlanta would be in the bottom tier of the South. We thought that the Chargers would be one of the best teams in the league. And they're literally in the opposite predictions of what we had assumed. You know, the Falcons are first place in the NFC South, and the Chargers are just fighting for relevancy at this point. I know they're only a game behind the Chiefs, but it's like they're not winning in the capacity that we thought they would after the free agency that they had, especially with the acquisitions of J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, and so many others. But now you go and you look at it, and like Kyle said, it's the opposite because of injuries. JC's out for the year. Mike Williams has a high ankle sprain. Keenan Allen's barely played more than a game or two this season because of that hamstring injury. Obviously, you have Joey Bosa out for the season. It is just something after something after something. It's one thing after another, and it's almost hindering their capability of performing because you're putting all the pressure on Justin Herbert. You forget that you have Austin Eckler in the backfield, but then they don't forget because he's their leading receiver in terms of receptions and yards. It's almost kind of crazy. I mean, I'm looking at the statistics right now, and well, maybe not in yards, excuse me, but in receptions, Austin Eckler has 53 targets. That's more than Devontae Adams, and that's more than multiple top number one receivers in the NFL thus far. I mean, that's rivaling almost Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is somewhere in the 60s. That's just ridiculous that a running back has that many receptions. So that goes to show there's not a lot of faith outside of the receivers that are not Mike Williams and that are not Keenan Allen. So I'm going to go with the Falcons because I feel like the Falcons got a big confidence booster last week. Marcus Mariota has been playing great with the secondary hurt, or should I say not playing efficiently as much as they should be in LA. I think that Drake London is going to have a big game. Kyle Pitts is a walking mismatch, but I think that Kyle Pitts will be locked up because Derwin James is the best cover safety in the league. We saw what he did to Travis Kelce just a couple of months ago, and I'm pretty sure that, you know, Travis Kelce is just a little bit better than Kyle Pitts. So I think from that perspective, Atlanta is going to have to lean on the run game, and I think that they're going to have to keep the ball away from Justin Herbert because we all know that in this Brandon Staley offense, they throw it a lot. I mean, Justin Herbert is throwing it 40, 50 times a game, week in and week out. And I understand that's because they feel like they can't run the ball. But I personally, I'm not understanding why Austin Eckler doesn't get the ball more than he already does. So I'm going to go with the Falcons. I will say that this could be a close one, especially because this one's in Atlanta. Atlanta's defense isn't exactly something stellar. And if Justin Herbert were to light it up, I could see this being another shootout. So I got Atlanta winning this one 28-24. Going to be one of those close games that come down to the wire. However, something to pay attention for, the Chargers did sign a backup kicker because Hopkins is hurt. So something to monitor and see if the consistency is going to be working there on special teams. So I'll definitely take Atlanta, but it will be a close game.
Yeah, honestly, if I had looked at this game a couple of weeks ago and you take away all the injury issues that the Chargers have dealt with this year, I would have thought the Chargers would win this game by probably 2 touchdowns, just because their offense is just solid from top to bottom. I don't have that faith anymore. And I know they're coming off of a bye week, but the injury issues are just so paramount with this team. I don't know how they're going to be able to overcome those injuries. So, Kev, I'm with you on this one. I think the Falcons are going to win this one in a stunner. I don't think a lot of people are thinking that the Falcons are going to win this game. But from what I've seen from them the last couple weeks, they've given me enough faith to actually pick them in this game. And Kev, I'm going to be honest with you. I can't believe I'm actually picking them. So when I look back to that game against the Panthers last week, with the Falcons specifically, I thought that they were amazing offensively, especially in that fourth quarter, because that fourth quarter, both the Panthers and the Falcons were just matching touchdowns back and forth. And I will say, even though that the Panthers looked like they were going to win the game at the end based on some, I would say, mental mistakes by the Panthers, game ends up going to overtime. And then the Falcons capitalize it on hitting a game-winning field goal and getting them the win and getting them first place in the NFC South. And then, you transition into this game. I think there's a very good chance that they could be able to replicate the success that they had against the Panthers when they go up against the Chargers this week. Because let's face it, Kev, this Chargers defense is not that good. And I know that injuries have played a major factor with them this year. Like you said, J.C. Jackson's out for the rest of the year. Granted, they do have Derwin James, but, Joey Bosa's out for the rest of the year. So it just seems from, I guess, a unit perspective defensively, this defense can be had. And when I look back to how the Chargers played against the Seahawks the week before their bye, they got absolutely annihilated by Seattle. Geno Smith was effective. Kenneth Walker was effective. And even though that the Seahawks have really been kind of one of the more surprising teams this year, the fact that they put up 37 points against that Chargers defense was spectacular as far as you're looking at it from the Seahawks perspective, but it was an absolute nightmare from the Chargers perspective. And even though that I wouldn't say that the Falcons have superstars on their offense, but they have guys that can be effective. Kyle Pitts, I think, is going to be a major factor. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets somewhere between 6 to 8 targets. I wouldn't be surprised on the run game that Tyler, I'm going to try to get his last name right, Tyler Algier. I'm probably butchering his last name, but if you're a Falcons fan, you know the potential with this, with him. Tyler's a solid running back. He's able to get effective runs on the ground. He's also able to extend plays after first contact. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has a solid game on the ground. And then as long as Marcus Mariota is just consistent in his overall efficiency, in his overall completion percentage, I think that by and large, I think the Falcons have the requisite pieces to be able to get this win against the Chargers. The Chargers, we'll see what happens with them, because Keenan Allen is kind of up in the air with that hamstring issue. Joshua Palmer will return this week, so maybe they can kind of get kick-started on the offense a little bit, but they don't have Mike Williams. He's recovering from a high ankle sprain. So it just seems like the Chargers are just snake-bitten with injuries this year, and until they really get healthy as a unit, which they really can't because there are some guys that are just out for the rest of the year, I think the Chargers are going to relatively struggle. So when I looked at this game, I think it is going to be a high-scoring affair just because I think both teams defensively are going to struggle, and it's kind of been their MO this year. But I think Atlanta's going to come out on top. I think Marcus Mariota is going to do more than Justin Herbert in this matchup, which is crazy for me to say just because I know what Justin Herbert's capable of. It's just, I think the Falcons have a little bit more to work with here, and you tie in all the injuries on the defensive side of the ball with the Chargers. I think the Falcons are going to get the dub here. I'm going to say it's going to be a relatively close game. I think it's going to be a one-possession win for the Falcons when it's all said and done. If I had to put a score on it, I'm going to say it's going to be 31-27 in favor of the Falcons, and that would bump them up to 5-4 on the season 9 weeks into the year. And depending on how it works out throughout the rest of the NFC South, it could potentially even widen their margin for first place when it's all said and done.
Again, it's weird that we're talking about this game being competitive. To me, it's just mind-boggling because both teams are just not at all what you would have expected this far into the season. And I know I already said that in my analysis previously. It's just, I'm not going to get over the fact that the Falcons are sitting here in first place in the NFC South and playing as competitive as they have been game in and game out. I mean, they almost won the Bucs game. They came really close to defeating the Super Bowl champions in the fourth quarter in week 2. Like, they are playing really good football right now, and who's to say that they can't ride this into a playoff berth? Of course, because if they win the division, that's an automatic berth. But again, just the opposite of the pedigree of the Chargers, the expectations that multiple people had, including ourselves. You can say that injuries had a lot to do with it, but they were playing poorly before the injuries had started. So let's not get it twisted here. So the Chargers got their own problems to figure out at the moment, but I don't know what's going to happen. So let's just let it ride out. Time will tell, and we'll just have to see what happens at this point.
All right, so up next, we've got a pretty solid matchup that's going to take place in the NFC West. It is going to be the Cardinals and the Seahawks. So just to kind of give you guys a quick preview of this game is going to take place in Arizona. We'll focus on Seattle here since they are the away team. They are sitting at a 5-3 record right now. They do hold first place in the NFC West, which I don't think anybody expected through the first 8 weeks of the year. More than likely, you would have probably thought that the Rams or the 49ers would probably be the two top teams in the NFC West right now, but that is not the case. Seattle's been a really solid team so far this year. Geno Smith is having just a consistent year, to say the least. They're getting good contributions from Kenneth Walker, and sitting at a 5-3 record, you know, they've really been one of the more surprising teams in the 2022 season so far. And then we kick it over to the Cardinals. They're sitting at a 3-5 record. They've been up and down, to say the least, the last couple weeks. They did get DeAndre Hopkins back into the fold a couple weeks ago, since he's no longer serving that 6-game suspension, and they're definitely going to need D Hop to step up big in this one. Not only that, they're going to need Kyler Murray and that defense to play up the snuff as well if they're going to want to make a run to try to get back to some sort of contention in the NFC West before the year finishes up. So, Kev, to kick this one to you, we got the Seahawks going up against the Cardinals in Week 9 on Sunday. Who do you think is going to come out on top from this NFC West battle?
To be completely honest, I don't think this is going to be close. I think that outside of the matchup of DeAndre Hopkins and, of course, Kyler Murray, their connection, the Arizona Cardinals have been pretty lackluster, so to speak, on offense. There has been a lot of ruffling of the feathers between Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. There has been a lot of issues and drama with play calling, so it's just a matter of when it's going to happen in terms of when that issue is going to just continue to arise and erupt. Since DeAndre Hopkins has come back, however, he has absolutely killed it in terms of, I believe he's got 22, 23 catches in 2 games by himself. So that's not going to be a problem. And I think that the Seahawks defense is going to be having some issues with just that matchup in and of itself. But if you can make sure that you keep DeAndre in check, or should I say, just let him do what he does and everybody else is kind of kept in order, I think that it's going to be pretty fair pretty safe to say that the Cardinals are going to fall short and the Seahawks are going to sweep the season series against the Cardinals. I think Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, and so many other pieces have come to be reliable sources for Geno to rely on. And I think that, of course, at the end of the day, Pete Carroll and this team have just really outshined and, exceeded expectations in pretty much every category you can possibly understand. The defense has been playing well the last 2-3 weeks. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they held the Chargers to 13 points. Last week, they actually, Last week they played the Giants. They held them to 13, 14 points. Their defense is playing good against pretty good football teams, if I had to say so myself. So if I had to put this one into a prediction, I would say that the Cardinals lose. The Seahawks win this game by, trying to be fair, but at the same time be realistic. I think that the Seahawks can win this game easily by maybe 10 to 14 points just because, again, they're riding a high wave. Their offense is riding high, and the defense is playing a lot better than what they've had in recent memory. So I will say that the Seahawks win this one confidently, and they move to 6-3 in a surprising division lead in the NFC West.
Yeah, Kev, I'm with you 100% on this one. I think the Seahawks are going to beat the Cardinals this week. Just to kind of make a point, they gave up 23 points to the Chargers 2 weeks
I knew
ago.
it had a 3. Damn,
it had
my
a 3
bad.
But still, I mean, you look at the last 2 weeks specifically, they're only giving up, 18 points per game the last 2 weeks against some pretty solid opponents with the Chargers and Giants, all things considered. So, no, when it comes to their defense, I think that they've been stepping up. They've been opportunistic and they're forcing turnovers. But just to kind of dive into the game itself, yeah, I think the Seahawks are going to win this one pretty convincingly. They've really been one of the more surprising teams in the NFL this year, and it's simply just because of the rise that Geno Smith has had. I don't think anybody expected Geno Smith to be this effective with the Seattle Seahawks. I think a lot of people would have looked at Seattle as a team kind of in decline, just based off of the fact that they traded Russell Wilson away. But looking back at that whole scenario, I think they are probably for the better for getting rid of Russell Wilson when you see how bad that Russell has played with the Broncos so far. And Geno Smith, I don't know if he's going to win NFL Comeback Player of the Year, but man, with the way that he's been playing, he has been just outright phenomenal for Seattle. And he's really a big reason why that Seattle's sitting at a 5-3 record right now in first place in the NFC West. And in this matchup, I think that Geno Smith is just going to continue this level of consistency. I mean, I don't expect him to go 350 yards passing and 4 touchdowns and light it up like Patrick Mahomes, but I wouldn't be surprised if he passes for somewhere in between 250 to 270 yards passing, has maybe a touchdown or 2, and is just consistent with completing passes. I wouldn't be surprised if he completes somewhere around 65 to 70% of his passes, just because that Cardinals defense can't be had. Now, the first time that these two teams played, it was a relatively low-scoring game. The Seahawks only won by 10 points, but it was a score of 19-9. So I think both teams are going to look back at the film when they played against each other a couple weeks ago. And I definitely think from an offensive perspective, this is going to be a higher scoring game. When you look back at the first matchup, the Cardinals didn't have DeAndre Hopkins. He was still serving that suspension. Now that he's back in the fold, I mean, Kyler Murray is making it a point of emphasis to get D-Hop the ball. And even though that it came in a losing effort last week against the Chargers, man, I thought that Actually, no, it was against the Chargers. It was against the Vikings. Excuse me. I thought the D Hop was extremely effective. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals make it a point of emphasis once again to get D Hop somewhere in between 10 to 15 catches. And I mean, for God's sakes, he might get somewhere around 15 to 17 targets. So I think that more than likely, if the Cardinals are going to be any way effective in this game, D Hop is going to have essentially a game where he's going to have to get 150 yards receiving and maybe a touchdown or two. Just because outside of that, you have Rondale Moore, you have Zach Ertz. But I think when it comes to Seattle's defense, I think that they could be able to contain those guys. It's whether or not that Seattle's defense is going to be able to contain D Hop. And I think that's going to be a challenge for them. And that's why I think that this game is going to be a little bit more high scoring than the first matchup, just because I think points aren't going to come at a premium here. I think both teams are going to be able to offensively move the ball up and down the field against each opposing defense. But I think when it's all said and done, I just have a little bit more faith in Seattle than I do with the Cardinals at this point. I think when it comes to this game, I think that Seattle is going to win by 10 points here. And if I had to put a score on it, I'm going to say Seattle wins this one by the score of 34-24. I really see this game being a high-scoring affair. And yeah, I'm just really shocked that Seattle has been this effective so far. And if they continue this effective style of offense, and you combine that with the fact that they've been great on the run game, Geno's been solid, and their defense is getting turnovers pretty consistently, I think that's a winning formula for them. I think it repeats itself in this matchup against the Cardinals, and they would bump up to 6-3 on the record once this game goes final on Sunday.
NFC West matchups are always entertaining. There's never a game that you can really say that's a snooze fest. I mean, as bad as other teams in the division outside of Seattle have been, they don't necessarily roll over. And, you know, outside of the couple blowouts that San Francisco gave the defending champions, I would say that the division has been relatively competitive for the most part. I mean, Arizona doesn't go out here and they don't just like roll over despite being down multiple scores. You don't ever see the Rams really give up. They just start off slow and it becomes an uphill battle and they compete. But it's just outside of San Fran and Seattle, it hasn't necessarily been something that it has been in the past. Like we've talked about before, the NFC East is the most competitive division in football this year. And it's just weird. Like Kyle and I talked about this a little bit personally, like when we weren't recording. This has been an odd NFL season. Like there are teams that are just struggling when they shouldn't be. There are teams that are surprising and exceeding expectations. And then there's teams that are just playing piss poor all over the place. So it's kind of just like a wacky situation here. But I mean, overall, I think it's going to be a pretty solid game. And D-Hop, if you hear this, I got you in fantasy, bro. If you want to go pop off for 17 catches, maybe a little 175, maybe 2 touchdowns or something like that, go off, King. I ain't going to tell you no.
I mean, it might come in a losing effort, but it's not because they're not going to lose because of him. So, yeah, I just don't have a lot of faith in the Cardinals. I mean, they can be effective in stretches, but they just can't do it consistently.
No.
So, yeah, and that's kind of their biggest impediment as far as I see it. And I think the Seahawks have a really good chance to put up some points against that Cardinals defense. I understand it's an NFC West divisional game, and typically those may be a little bit more closer affairs. But in this one, I think Seattle's going to look back to that game film from a couple of weeks ago, going to find some holes to exploit in that Cardinals defense and make it a point of emphasis to get some touchdowns on the board. So them only scoring 19 points a couple of weeks ago. Granted, it wasn't a win. But I know that Pete Carroll and the offensive personnel are probably going to look at that situation. It's like, we could do better than that. It's like, there's definitely some points that can be had against that defense. So with that said, we are going to transition to one of our featured matchups this weekend, and that is going to be the Los Angeles Rams going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I use that term featured very loosely here because, let's face it, the Rams and the Bucs have been major disappointments this year. The Rams are sitting at a 3-4 record. The Bucs are sitting at a 3-5 record. The Rams, just from an offensive perspective, they are really struggling to protect Matt Stafford. They can't run the ball effectively. And by and large, it's just been a grind this year for the Rams to get anything consistently going on the offensive side of the ball. Not only that, Cooper Kupp is dealing with an ankle injury to make matters worse. And it just seems as if to say it's an uphill battle for the Rams this year is an understatement. And they're coming off of a Super Bowl championship last year, and it just looks like a completely different team this year. And then you could get over to Tampa, and a lot of the same issues that the Rams are experiencing, you could apply it to Tampa. Tampa's lost 3 straight games. Tom Brady has looked frustrated with the lack of productivity that the offense just can't get whatsoever. Not only that, they can't run the ball effectively. The offensive line is suspect at best. And looking at the Bucs right now, they're sitting in second place. They're 2 games under 500. Second place in the NFC South, I should say, just to be more specific. And I would just say this for both teams. They really need a win here, because if one of these teams lose, you have to start putting out the possibility of that team, whether it be the Rams or the Bucs, potentially missing the playoffs this year. So, Kevin, to kick this one to you, when it comes to the Rams and the Buccaneers in this Week 9 matchup, who do you think is going to win? But more importantly, who do you think needs this win more, the Rams or the Bucs?
So this is probably one of the hardest predictions I've had to come up with in terms of this particular matchup. Mind you, these teams played each other in the playoffs last year, which ended up being one of the more electrifying games at that point, at that moment in time. Both teams are horrible, and they have mirrored issues that just make this even more comical for me personally. Both teams can't run the football. Both teams' offensive lines are horrible. They've had some injuries on both sides of the football. And of course, at the end of the day, both quarterbacks are known to be pretty electrifying quarterbacks, but they haven't been able to produce because they basically had no time to throw the ball. And when they do, they're hurried into making terrible decisions. So it's like, it's kind of a toss-up of who's worse at this point, not really who's better. In my opinion, I think this is more pivotal for the freaking Buccaneers, because I think that the Rams are just teetering and getting worse and worse as weeks progress. The Bucs are as well, but the Bucs are because the offensive line is just missing a couple of pieces, but they also are the worst team in running the football. So it's like I'm almost contradicting myself here, Kyle. It's almost kind of comical because I can't make a definitive decision. I don't know who's going to win this game. I don't care who's going to win this game because they're just both bad football teams and they both fail to execute in the most important situations. If I had to make a prediction on who will win, I'm going to go with the Buccaneers. I don't think Tom Brady loses 4 games in a row. I think that the defense is going to get some healthy people back. I think there's going to be an emphasis to run the football against this team that is statistically not one of the better defenses in the league. And I didn't say they were the worst, but they're not exactly one of those higher up their defenses like the Bills, the 49ers, and the Eagles, which, by the way, the Eagles moved to 8-0 for the first time in franchise history. So kudos to them. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, I think Tom is going to have one of those games where he wills a team to victory. He's going to just be in everybody's faces, in the coaching staff, all over the place. Like, there's just going to be an emphasis of, guys, we're not falling this far down. Like, we are not about to be out-dueled by a worse football team on the other side. For God's sakes, Cam Akers doesn't even want to play for this franchise at the moment. They're focusing on trying to get Odell, and that's not going to make a difference. They need to fix the offensive line in reference to the Rams. So I'm going to go with the Bucs, but I'm going to say it's going to be a low-scoring, really weird game. I think for a fact this is probably going to be somewhere around 14-17, just because both offenses are pretty inept. Cooper Kupp is hurt. They're really trying to get Allen Robinson incorporated, but I just don't necessarily have faith that is going to be enough to combat Buccaneers. Buccaneers defense hasn't exactly been stellar of late, but they've been dealing with injuries, so I'm hoping that some players are going to be able to return, like Antoine Winfield and others. So we will see what happens, but I got the Bucs winning this one in an actual ugly nail-biter, 17-14.
Kevin, I think the best way that I could describe this game for both teams is this is a chance for both teams to hit the reset button, because I think it's safe to say the first half of the seasons for both the Rams and the Bucs have been absolute tire fires. And just from a record perspective, I mean, the Rams are sitting at 3-4, the Bucs are sitting at 3-5. The Bucs have lost 3 straight games, and I think it's just there's a major sense of urgency for both teams. Like, they have to get this game, because if they do, they can at least stay in the playoff hunt. If one of these teams lose, then we have to start talking about whether or not that they're going to miss the playoffs. And I think that's a realistic expectation for both teams if they were to lose this game. So this is a very difficult pick for me, but I'm going with the Bucs. I don't have a lot of faith in it, but I'm going to do my best to explain why. So when it comes to the Bucs, I got to see something from them to show me that this offense can finally get a kickstart. And I will say that there were stretches when they played against the Ravens on that Thursday night game in week 8 last week where there were some flashes. And then it was followed up by punt. It seems as if whenever the Bucs get into a situation where they're facing a third down they just can't convert consistently. And it usually just comes down to the down and distance. They're not dealing with like 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. In that case, you open up the playbook, you could run it, you could show pass. It kind of puts the defense that they're going up against on their heels because the offense can be flexible in that way. But that's not really the case here. A lot of the times the Bucs are dealing with 3rd and 5 or longer, and that typically means that the Bucs are going to pass, and they just haven't been able to cash in on those 3rd down conversions. And that's why the offense has really been sputtering to put any points on the board. And then when you look at their offensive line, they've been very suspect. They're giving up hurries. They're giving up pressures. Tom is not as comfortable in the pocket as he's been in years past. And you could just tell that it's an absolute grind for the Bucs to get anything consistently on the offensive side of the ball. But looking at the Rams and their defense specifically, they've been suspect this year. And I do believe that the Bucs have the requisite pieces to be able to burn this defense on a couple plays that could lead to some scoring drives here. But when you look at the Rams need this game probably just as much as the Bucs do, but they've been dealing with a lot of the same issues that the Bucs have been having. Poor offensive line play, they can't run the ball effectively. When you combine those two factors together, the overall result, it leads to just inconsistency on the offensive side of the ball for the Rams, and then it has a domino effect because that Rams defense is out on the field longer than they need to be, and they're getting torched, they're giving up points. It's really just been, I would say, just a well-rounded failure for the Rams at this point compared to where they were last year. I mean, they won the Super Bowl against the Bengals, and they look like a completely different team this year. It looks unrecognizable compared to this team, or compared to that team from last year. So this is a situation where, honestly, this game is like a toilet bowl, just to kind of put it bluntly. But, Kev, I'm with you. I am going to pick the Bucs in this one. I do think it is going to be a rather ugly game. And I think points are going to come at a premium here just because both offenses just can't generate anything consistently as far as scoring touchdowns are concerned. So if I had to put a score on it, I think that Tampa probably wins this game by a possession. I think that Tom and the offense for the Bucs do just enough. I think this is going to be like a 21-17 score just because I don't see the Rams putting up that many points against that Bucs defense just because the Bucs are getting some players back that they've been dealing with injuries, so maybe we'll see Antoine Winfield Jr. and Sean Murphy-Bunting and Carlton Davis. So if those guys are able to return, that would definitely give a huge boost for Tampa. And then I think that Rams defense is going to falter a little bit against Tampa's offense just because I think that Tampa still has the requisite pieces to be able to score some points against them, but it's going to be a grind. This game is just going to be an outright grind for both teams, but I'm going to favor the Bucs in this one in a really close affair.
To be honest, as much as I want to watch this game, it's like something's compelling me not to because I don't feel like it's going to be entertaining. And I'm one to always say defensive games for me are just I personally like watching those. And it's like I don't know if it's necessarily going to be defensive or if it's like the fact that both offenses are just so bad and incompetent. So
it's like you said. I think you described it pretty well. A lot of the issues that one team is dealing with, you can mirror it to the other team, and they're very similar. I mean, who would have thought that the Bucs and the Rams would be sitting at a sub 500 record when we're going into the month of November? I don't think we had any expectation of that. And I can't say that one team is really worse than the other. I mean, they seem like a very similar team, just with different names on it. So I think it just comes down to a situation where they're going to have to look at the first half of the year and they're just going to have to throw it up in flames because I would probably think that both teams know that they're better than what they put out the first 2 months of the season. So, and there still is time. They got 2 months to be able to rectify the first half of the year and get back into it. But I think it's going to be an uphill battle for both teams, to be honest with you.
It's going to be weird.
I think the Bucs have a better chance to get their season back on track. I think the Rams, they got to contend with the Seahawks and the 49ers in that division. That's going to be tough. The Bucs really only have to deal with the Falcons. That's, I think, the biggest reason why I think that the Bucs can get back. Just overall, the NFC South is just a really weak division. And, I mean, the NFC West is better. But I just don't know whether or not the Rams could be able to really turn it around. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think it's going to be like one of like the best games that we'll see in week 9. I think it's going to be a grind. So, And a lot of people would probably think otherwise just because of Matt Stafford going up against Tom Brady. But this year, it's just both teams have been very subpar. But we'll leave that game where it's at. We'll transition to our last game that we'll cover for week 9. And that is going to be the Titans and the Chiefs matchup that is going to take place on Sunday night. Now, this game probably has a little bit more hype behind it just because the Titans are sitting at a 5-2 record. The Chiefs are sitting at a 5-2 record. This game is being played in KC, and Kev, I think that we could say just from the last couple of years in recent memory, KC's fans definitely show out on primetime games, and I wouldn't be surprised if those Chiefs fans are ready to rock and roll when that game goes off on Sunday night. So this will definitely be a solid game. We got the division leaders in both the AFC South and the AFC West in this one. So this will definitely be a fun game when it starts off on Sunday night. So Kevin, to kick this one to you, we got the Titans going up against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, and probably one of the better games of week 9. Who do you think is going to come out on top, and why?
I think this game is going to be the game of the week. I think that this game is going to surprise a lot of people because at the end of the day, we all know that the Titans are probably sitting at a record in which not many people thought they would because, you know, you lose A.J. Brown in the offseason, a couple of injuries to start the year in terms of some of the defensive players. They started off rough, especially getting blown out by Buffalo in week 2. It was just kind of like it wasn't looking very well. Now, I'm looking at the predictions in terms of what ESPN has their predictions as to who's going to win, and it's like 88% Kansas City. But this is also the same percentage bracket that Kyle said that they picked the ESPN picked the Celtics to win the finals. And what was it, Kyle? 80 what percent?
It was like 86% that the Celtics would win over the Warriors in the NBA Finals, and that pretty much went up in flames.
Yeah, so I take this with a grain of salt. The only reason I say that this is up in the air is because Ryan Tannehill didn't play last week. Malik Willis did. And I'm trying to find the injury report for the Titans because I'm sitting here and I had to refresh my screen because pop-up ads, I got to renew my firewall, whatever. So I'm looking at it and it says Ryan Tannehill is questionable, didn't practice on Thursday. So I don't know if that means as of this moment that he is going to potentially play. I don't know if they're holding him out because they want to save him for Sunday to be fresh. But that immediately changes the prediction, or not changes, but it intensifies my prediction. I'm going KC no matter what. I think KC has their number. I think KC has a better overall team, obviously the better quarterback. The only thing that Tennessee really does have better is Derrick Henry. Just had 200 yards, but against one of the worst teams in football. I think KC finds a way to get ahead quickly. I think they torch the secondary of the Titans. Patrick Mahomes goes for 3 or 4 touchdowns. I think this is going to be one of those statement games where Pat says, I'm him. We're talking about Josh Allen. We're talking about Jalen Hurts and all these other people. This is mine. And we're talking about week 9. If this were to happen, they would move 2 games ahead of the Chargers in terms of the division. And I think that Patrick Mahomes absolutely says, I am going to win the MVP. I am going back to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs have a statement win. They've been playing very, very well as of late, aside from the Buffalo loss, which was just very, very minute, by the way. And I think that they take advantage and they capitalize. And if Ryan Tannehill plays, I think they have a better chance. But if he does play, it's probably going to be limited. So if Malik Willis plays with that inexperience, this could easily turn into a 3-possession blowout because Malik Willis didn't really show much for me last week. That was all Derrick Henry. He had like 30 touches and he went off for 200 yards like I had already stated. Malik has promise. I mean, he has potential. He has the mobility. He has the arm strength. It's just he is not experienced enough for me to have faith to go up against a juggernaut like Kansas City, a potential Super Bowl favorite or a Super Bowl participant upcoming in February. So I got the Chiefs. I don't think it's close. If Tannehill plays, it's a little bit closer, but not too much. They just have to find a way to at least limit Henry. And by limit, I mean keep him under 200, which is a tall task in and of itself. But I think the Chiefs have the requisite pieces to do it. I think Kansas City dominates on Sunday night, and it's not going to be close.
Yeah, I think this game is going to go one or two ways, but I do believe that it is going to go in KC's favor. To me, it just depends on how much KC's going to win by. And it's dependent on Derrick Henry. If Derrick Henry pops off, it has one of his, Derrick Henry vintage type games. Basically, just think of what he did to the Texans last week. If he has a game like that, then I think the Chiefs only win this one by like 1 possession. However, if the Chiefs are able to slow down Derrick Henry and contain him like the Bills did on that famous Monday night game a couple months ago, then I think the Chiefs win this one by 3 possessions. I think they could win by 21, 24 points when it's all said and done. But I think that's really what it comes down to. I got the Chiefs winning this one, but it's whether or not that Derrick Henry is going to pop off. And when I look at Tennessee this year specifically, it's been very hit or miss with Derrick. Just because when they went up against the Bills, they got annihilated by Buffalo. And the reason why Buffalo was so successful was they just contained Derrick Henry. They didn't give him any chance to break out of tackles. And when you look at what the Bills offense did, they just lit it up and got to a point where the Titans had no other choice but to pass the ball and keep it out of Derrick Henry's hands. When it comes to the Chiefs this weekend, the Chiefs have to do the same thing of what Buffalo did to Tennessee on that Monday night game a couple months back. And there's a very good chance that could happen. Because when I look at the Titans defense, they've only been tested a few times this year. The Bills were definitely a test earlier in the season, and they outright failed. And they really haven't had what I would consider some really tough offenses to go up against. Maybe you could say going up against the Raiders was a challenge simply just because the Raiders have a pretty solid offense to work with. But this is a night and day difference going up against KC's offense. And when you look at KC's offense, I mean, they're running and gunning. They put up 44, 45 points against the 49ers before their bye week. These guys are fresh. They're coming into a primetime game on Sunday night. There's a very good chance that if Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense finds their rhythm early, the Chiefs could put up 40 points in this game. And I don't think there's anything that Tennessee could do defensively to be able to slow them down. It almost kind of seems like when the Chiefs get on a roll, it's almost as if like you're going through an avalanche defensively. It's just like it's one after another, and it's a snowball effect. You know, if KC gets off to a hot start, they'll get a touchdown after a touchdown after a touchdown, just one after another. So Tennessee's going to have to make this kind of a gutter type game. They're going to have to really emphasize running the football effectively with Derrick Henry to kind of make this game competitive. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think KC's defense is going to be able to slow down Derrick Henry enough where Tennessee may get some early field goals if they get into position. But, you know, you're talking about field goals. You have to score touchdowns against KC to be able to at least stay in the game. And I think that KC's offense is just going to run and gun. I think that Patrick Mahomes could put up 350 yards passing in this one. I see a minimum of at least 2 touchdowns, more than likely probably 3. And I love the fact that KC is finally starting to get Juju Smith-Schuster more incorporated into the offense. He's had some relatively solid games the last 2 appearances. The first half of the year, he was very hit or miss. And I think going into this game, I think that wouldn't be a surprise to me if Patrick Mahomes and Juju really kind of connect for somewhere around, I'd say maybe 6 to 8 targets. And I wouldn't be surprised if Juju gets about like 5 or 6 catches. Maybe he could get 100 yards receiving, maybe a touchdown. But not only that, you know, they got a pretty solid run game to go on top of that. I think it's just going to be too much for Tennessee to handle defensively. So if I had to say, I think more than likely, I think that KC's going to run away with this game. I think just to be fair, I said if Derrick Henry has a solid game, it would be a one-possession game. I do believe that Derrick Henry is going to be effective early on, but I think in the second half, Tennessee's going to have to throw the ball a lot more. That means that Derrick Henry's not going to touch the rock as much, and I think Casey's just really going to run away with it in the second half. So I'm going to say that Casey's going to win this one by 3 possessions. I think it'll be a 17-point margin when it's all said and done in favor of the Chiefs. If I had to throw a score on it, I'm going to say they win this one like 37-20. I really see Patrick Mahomes just lighting up that Titans defense and really improving his MVP campaign for this season because he's definitely one of the contenders for MVP about 9 weeks into the season.
I mean, I'd say he's definitely the front runner just because he leads the league in touchdown passes. Yeah. I mean, he leads the league's highest offensive scoring team in the league. I mean, it's just the list goes on as to why you would favor him. But similar to what you said, the Titans haven't played anybody. And they haven't exactly been winning by big margins outside of last week. So it's like you're winning close games. Again, they're wins. I'm not discrediting them. But you're winning close games against mediocre to average football teams. And then the one really good team you played, which is the team that Kansas City lost to, which most people have lost to other than the Dolphins, were the Bills. And that was a massacre. It was week 1. It was September, blah, blah, blah. The excuses can run on and on. The point is you did not execute, and your best player was literally a non-factor. I think he had under 30 yards rushing in like 12 or 14 attempts, whatever the total number is. He averaged like 1 yard a carry. Unacceptable.
That game got away from them. That game got away from them quickly, and they couldn't recover.
But the point is, a high-powered offense like the Bills is the same thing in Kansas City. It's Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. It's 1A and 1B. Big arm, athleticism, great receivers, great team, great coaching. It's literally identical. I don't think Tennessee has gotten better to the point where they can stay within a 7-point game to make this competitive. If you're just going to rely on giving your running back the ball 30 times a game, which is time consuming, and you don't capitalize and score touchdowns, we've seen Pat Mahomes score in under a minute. I mean, for God's sakes, he drove up against the Bills in 13 seconds to get a field goal. If you give him 4 quarters and a lower tier average defense, which is what the Titans are, I think that this is going to go. I think this is going to go stupid. I think Pat Mahomes has a statement game for 400, maybe even 450. Bro, I have no faith, especially if Tannehill doesn't play. No shot this game is anywhere in reach for Tennessee to scrape a victory.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, when it comes to Derrick Henry specifically, if he's going to have a good game, I mean, this is the game where they need him to have a really good game, because if he is contained in any way, shape, or form, Casey's going to run away with this game. There's no way. And the thing is, whether it's Malik Willis or Ryan Tannehill, you really think that those guys are equipped to take out Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense? There's no way. Now, Derrick Henry can. He could really disrupt that whole game flow for KC if, the Tennessee Titans O-line could be able to win that battle on the line of scrimmage. And that, to me, is where the real battle is going to take place in that KC Titans game. It's going to be that offensive line for the Titans. Can they be able to open up some run lanes for Derrick Henry to be able to exploit? Because if he has a game in any way, shape, or form like he had against the Texans last week, KC might be in a little bit of trouble.
It's going to be a long night for sure.
I'm not saying – I'm still of the mindset, even if Derrick Henry has a really good game, I'm still of the mindset that KC's going to win.
Yeah.
It's just the margin of victory is going to be shorter. It's going to be smaller. That's all. I don't see Tennessee walking into Arrowhead on Sunday night and getting a win. I just don't see it. So I think it's going to be electric, though. I think the atmosphere is going to be lit. Those KC fans never fail to
disappoint.
Impress. Yeah, they're always ready to rock and roll. So they'll be good to go on Sunday night. But overall, man, I think KC's going to run away with this one. I just really see that one being an absolute, I guess you could kind of say like an annihilation on Sunday night. Maybe that's a little bit too far for me to say. Maybe exaggerating a little bit. I think that KC wins that game convincingly, though. So with that said, we are going to go over the Astros and the Phillies game. Now, as of right now, the game is still ongoing. I mean, I say this all the time.
I'm watching it right now. It's crazy.
So as of right now, we're in the bottom. Is it the bottom of the 8th inning?
Bottom of the 8th, 2 on, 1 out.
Interesting.
It's 3-1 Houston. Obviously, the series is tied 2-2. But this is the last game in Philadelphia for this series because Houston has home field advantage. And it's not like the NBA where it's 2-2, 1-1-1. It is 2-3-2. So if Philly does not win this game, the odds are very slim to go on and win 2 in a row out there in Houston. So Philly is looking to try to break this game open, at least by a minimum tie it. They have last licks in terms of being able to hit in the bottom of the 9th. So we will see what happens. It looks like Montero's losing control in terms of not being able to find the strike zone. So let's take a look and see if Segura can knock one in.
Yeah. I mean, I know we kind of talked about it earlier in the episode, but really, like, this series just as a whole, it's been one team has a really good game, and then that same team the next game falters. It's really been kind of a back and forth series since game 1 took place. And I mean, just to kind of kick it to like game 3 in particular, the Phillies looked absolutely unstoppable. I mean, they were
Segura knocks one in, baby.
Also, it's 3-2.
Yes, sir.
Now, who's still on base?
Man in the corners. Third and first, 1 out.
Okay.
Guys, I'm not a Phillies fan. We all know I'm a Yankees fan, but hatred for the Astros is globally.
Where are you watching this, by the way? Because I've
laptop.
Yeah, what's the link?
Oh, Stream East.
Okay. I might even pull it up on my phone. I could.
The atmosphere is crazy. I can't hear it, obviously, because I have the audio of the podcast and I have like basically everything else muted, guys. But like I can see the fans like screaming like crazy. And if I know Northeastern sports like Kyle does, those fans are going nuts. There's a pitching change. They're even going crazier. This is ridiculous. The Astros are putting in their closer, and he's one of the better closers in the league. So they need this to happen right now. I just went to commercial, but this game's going to go crazy.
I know. And the funny thing is, like, we were talking about this before we even started recording. Honestly, Kev, we thought this game would already have gone final by the time we would have reached this point. But, I mean, they got like a 10-7 game, and they're only like in like the top of the seventh or the bottom of the
fifth
seventh.
or sixth or something. Yeah. Thank God, no, because that would have been as much as we want to talk about it. We got to finish up this episode so we can watch it. But we're like literally innings, not even innings. We're outs away from this game going final. So we'll try to give our analysis on the series as much as we can, while at the same time keeping you guys abreast. But again, by the time you hear this game will have already gone final. So
yeah, it's just, I guess, like, let's kind of play it this way. So, like, if Houston were to kind of pull this game out, basically from the jaws of defeat here, just because it looks like the Phillies are on a little bit of a run in the 8th inning, how do you think like this sets them up when the series goes back to Game 6 for Houston, or it goes back to Game 6 in Houston?
I can't say that this is going to give them any edge. I mean, just because, like you alluded to, this has gone back and forth. The Phillies get the upset in Game 1 and steal home field advantage away from Houston right off the bat. And they came from behind because, if I'm not mistaken, they were down 5-0. And they came back to win 6-5. So that showed Philly has the capabilities with their offense. Their bullpen came in and locked it down after Nola blew the game. And then the next game, Houston goes out and they make, I don't remember if it was Syndergaard or who it was, but they made their pitcher look like shit, and they go and they win that game 5-2. Come fast forward, obviously you go to the Game 3, Philly goes on a tear. Yeah. It was just like, it was a rout. I mean, it was home run after home run after home run, and Houston couldn't get it going.
It hit dingers.
So that was a blowout. I thought that was going to be the change, because dude, when you catch momentum like that in the World Series and you're home, you ride that wave and you don't look back, especially because Philly has been one of the more electrifying offenses in the postseason. Mm-hmm. I thought that would have catapulted them to win this in 5 or 6. Then they get no hit by the Astros in Game 4.
No hit, bro. It's
a cohesive no hit too, because the starter went 5 or 6, and then the bullpen ended up wrapping it up. So it was a combination of 2 or 3 pitchers to get the no hitter. But overall, Philly looked like shit, and I didn't understand what the hell happened. I was looking at this game, just lost. Kyle watched the game, so I guess I'll bounce it back to you. What the hell happened in Game 4?
Well, I mean, looking back to Game 4 specifically, Houston's pitching staff was just on fire that night. And it was, honestly, they basically just took the thunder from the Phillies from Game 3. It's just, I thought that the Phillies would have, like you said, carried that momentum from Game 3 going into Game 4 with their pitching staff literally on a high after Game 3, especially with the home crowd behind you. There was a really good chance that they could have went to 3-1 in that series had they won Game 4, and they just laid an egg. And pretty much looking back at that game specifically, it just came down to one inning. Houston was able to get some hits, and not only that, they were able to load the bases, but they were able to get all those guys in. They scored 5 runs, I believe, all in one inning, if I remember correctly. And honestly, all they needed was 1. They ended up getting 5. The other 4, I guess, were just insurance runs at that point. But man, I thought that Philly would have responded in some sort of way. But when they went down 5-0, it just seemed like it took like the entire life. It took the air out of the stadium, and it just seemed like the Phillies, they just couldn't work the count properly from the batter's box. And that's where you got to give credit to Houston's pitching staff. I mean, the fact that they were able to bounce back that effectively after having what I would only describe as getting shelled in Game 3. Man, you want to talk about a turnaround. I mean, that's an epic turnaround. You go from giving up 7 runs in Game 3 to not only shutting out the Phillies, who just put up 7 against you. They basically just put up a touchdown on you the game before. You hit them in a combined effort with like 2, 3, 4 pitchers. That was insane. So the fact that Houston was able to put that in the rearview mirror and never look back, I got to give Houston a lot of credit for that. So, Kev, what just happened?
Marsh just struck out.
Oh, I thought
chased the changeup in the dirt.
I thought that it was a double play with that reaction.
Curveball or a slider, one of those two. Actually, it's not a change. It's so frustrating. All 3 pitches were just garbage. Come on. That's why Presley's one of the best relievers in the postseason. I believe he's got 8 2/3 pitched, 3 walks, 12 Ks, no earned runs in the playoffs by himself.
Mm. Mm.
Those are key numbers, man. When you have a closer, a setup, or any reliever to have numbers like that
it's crucial.
Is numbers to applaud.
It's crucial.
Kyle Schwarber's up to bat, 2 outs, runners in the corners.
I mean, he gets a hit here, ties it.
Dude, they're like swing. So this is shout out to my boy Brian again. You know, the big Philly guy that I mentioned a couple of episodes ago. He keeps me abreast with what's going on when I can't watch every single game. But it's like he told me what happened in Game 4 was they weren't hitting for contact. And again, I didn't see the whole game, so I only saw a couple of at bats here and again. He described it as they were going for the fences to replicate the success of Game 3.
Yep.
There wasn't much discipline, while at the same time, whatever they did hit was a pop-up or a line out. And again, when you go for power, I'm going to ask the baseball player, can't that get into your head, that overconfidence of we're shelling their pitchers, they're going to leave some stuff up, let me see if I can put one out there, and then that kind of just manifests itself when you get behind?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, especially when you're on a high, especially after Game 3, I think you have like, oh, maybe your ego gets a little bit inflated, thinking we could walk into Game 4 and just kind of carry that momentum without, you know, really kind of considering that Houston's going to make an adjustment going into that game. What happened?
Just a filthy curveball by freaking Presley, man. Oh my God. He had Schwarber in front of it so fast, he almost like fell over. Jesus Christ.
Was it a strike?
Oh my God, absolutely. He whiffed so hard, he ended up on a knee.
Yeah, sometimes those curveballs, man, sometimes they're that bad. Like,
filthy outside. I mean, obviously he's a lefty and Presley's a righty. So when he broke that outside corner, he just ended up reaching so far out. He ended up on one knee and he got up like.
What's the count?
It's 1-2.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, Schwarber is a legitimately home run or bust player. He's not necessarily known for the best contact, in my opinion, from what I've seen in his career.
At this point, now he's basically got a bat defense.
Trying to stay alive.
Yeah. So, I mean, best case scenario, obviously he gets a hit, but if he could work this count to 3-2.
Oh, it was a line out down the first base line, right to the first baseman. Oh, bro, he roped it. It was an inside pitch, and the first baseman basically just.
It was right to him.
Right to him, like on the first base line, bounces right in front for the scoop, and he just touches the bag. Like it was like the perfect place for the ball. Damn. They got to run. So.
Well, they still have the ninth inning, so they still got
the ninth. Yeah.
So I don't know who did they have in their lineup after Schwarber.
Due up?
Yeah,
Let's take a look and see what we have.
I don't even care if we're doing this on the fly.
It looks like after Schwarber, it's the top of the lineup. So Schwarber's leadoff. It's Hoskins, Real Muto, and then Harper to end it. So if anybody's going to end the game, it's going to be with their best player. So at least Harper will get an at bat this inning.
Houston's got to be careful though, because
Presley's in there for a 5-out save without a doubt. Presley just went in there and got 2 outs.
Yeah, and he probably only threw like 10 pitches, if that.
Yeah, potentially 10, maybe if that. Yeah, you're right.
So, I mean, look.
Presley threw 7.
The Phillies get somebody on, and then Bryce Harper comes up to bat, and it's only a 1-run game.
Clutchest player in the playoffs this year, so I wouldn't be surprised.
The stage would be set. That's all I'm going to say. It's whether or not that Bryce takes advantage of it. But they got to get somebody on base first.
Exactly. I mean, even if he just ties it, that's going to give them an opportunity because they're home. So,
yeah. Man, if the Phillies were able to squeak this one out, that'd be huge.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into what if this team wins and what if that team wins, because then that's just a double analysis that we're going to end up wasting time on. We've already talked about the World Series enough. We've given our opinions on what we think could happen, on how the series has played out. We don't want to drag this on, especially for those of you that are, either getting into work or whenever it is that you listen to this. It's just kind of like repetitive stuff. So I think we'll wrap it up on that note. I mean, that's about everything we have in terms of the agenda. So, I mean, I know that for me, next week, I'll be here for the next 2 episodes, but afterwards I'll be going on a little vacation to go to Orlando to hang out with some friends at EDC Orlando. Haven't been to a festival in a couple of years since COVID, and last year I wasn't able to go. Just had the dog, had no one to watch him. Blah blah blah, whatever. So Kyle will be kind of manning the next episode or so after I'm gone for just a little bit till I get back. So just thought I'd give you guys a heads up.
Bro, you're gonna be tearing it up at EDC. I could tell you right now.
I'm not though. You know what's crazy? Before I get onto a tangent,
Oh
I've
God.
mentally been telling myself that I'm getting old. Like I'm getting tired. Like hanging out with my friends. I'm getting tired. Like walking around the block trying to stay healthy. Like dude, a festival is like I'm not playing. I know I'm dating myself here, but like a festival is Friday, Saturday, Sunday from 12 to 12. So that's literally 36 hours straight of just going to a festival, going to a concert. And I'm not one of those crazy people that drinks all day, smokes all day. It's just I'm there for the energy of the rave. And that's truthfully, if anybody could attest to that, it's the people I go with. I'm not one of those that goes nuts. I just admire and appreciate the atmosphere. It's a getaway for me. But to be standing for 12 hours, 3 days in a row, and then go to work the next day, which is going to be that Monday or that Tuesday,
You gonna be in
I'm gonna be
hell, bro, on
exhausted.
Monday. You gonna be in hell on Monday, bro. I'd tell you that right
Exactly.
now.
So I'm not trying to go like I said, I'm not finna turn up or go. I'm not in my young 20s anymore. I'm not 19 or whatever. So it's like at this point, I'm there to relax. We got VIP this year, so we can kind of like just chill, and we'll see what happens. I'm excited because there are some DJs that I haven't seen in some years that I want to see, but I'm gonna have a good time. That's for damn sure.
Well, yeah. Hey, bro. First festival. What's it's like 2019?
2019 because 2020 got canceled.
Yep.
2021 I didn't go because of fear of COVID because I had just gotten it that Christmas or like I actually no, I didn't get it yet. I was scared to get it and then I ended up getting it that December. So like it ended up hitting me regardless, but and also I didn't have anybody to watch the dog because I believe Isabel was out of town or doing something.
Yeah, but I mean, now you're just gonna have fun. Just
Yeah,
let it happen. Just
I'm
enjoy
cooling it, bro. I'm
enjoy the vibes, bro.
relaxing.
You gotta enjoy the vibes.
Yeah, I told Isabel same thing every. Did they just hit a home run or something? No. Okay, sorry, that was a flashback. I told Isabel since we got together, this is the one thing I ask for myself every year. Most guys go on crazy guy trips to Vegas, LA, New York. I just do EDC once a year, and that's my getaway with my boys and my friend Christine, and now my boy's girlfriend Gabby, and we all just like. It's so hard to describe for those of you that aren't into music like that and aren't into festivals. It's like when you feel the beat on the floor and you are surrounded by thousands upon thousands of people all sharing in the same excitement. It's really relaxing because it's just everybody is thinking the same way that you're thinking. Everyone's just there for a good time and there's no judgment there. I know Planet Fitness's slogan is a judgment-free zone, but it's like people doing the weirdest dances. People are out there wearing face paint, makeup, pasties, whatever it is. Nobody cares. Like there's absolutely nobody sitting there poking fun of you, sitting in the corner smoking a J like, oh, look at this douchebag. It's everybody's so nice to everybody. I've even seen something as nice as a guy was in a wheelchair. They picked the guy up in a wheelchair at a stage and they carried him to the front. And they were like, getting excited with him and stuff. The guy was crying. He was so happy. He was just like, I haven't been able to walk in years. I think he was like a retired military veteran too. So it was just the atmosphere is beautiful. That's all I'm trying to say. And there's always that narrative that, oh, it's just everyone's doing drugs and people are dying every day. Those are, that happens because those are people that are very immature, don't know how to handle themselves in a good environment. And again, I've seen it happen. It's unfortunate. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen to the magnitude that people make it seem like. I mean, for God's sakes, Rolling Loud last year or whatever concert that was, a Travis Scott concert where people were just getting trampled, that's a nightmare. So the narrative with EDC needs to chill. Hip hop concerts are getting crazy. So let's cool it down. But yes, I'm excited for my vacation.
No,
Thank you for
bro.
coming to my TED Talk. I'll be here all week.
No, bro. Just enjoy the vibes, bro. It's for 3 days, so you go be chilling.
Big time.
But no, I hope you have a good time and don't get the COVID.
No, I mean, at this point, if I get it a year later, it is what it is. I had the antibodies, I had the vaccine. It's just, they struck out. Let's go. Got McCormick on a nice breaking slider.
But
we'll see what happens. I'm not worried about it.
Isabel's not going?
Isabel doesn't do that stuff. I've asked a couple of times, but I've also let her know, like, sometimes she gets tired as well. And just, she has like plantar fasciitis in her feet and stuff like that. So she can't be up for long periods of time. 12 hours, I'm not missing DJs. I will literally send her in an Uber because once you leave the festival, you can't come back.
Yeah.
So I'm good off that. Like if you can't hack it and I know I can't hack it, I'm forcing myself through it. I can't force her.
For me, man, I could maybe do a day. I don't know if I could do 3.
Yeah.
Could maybe do a day.
And my friends asked me, would she come for a day? And I think she would. I think the problem is coming up for one day when we're there for the weekend for her to sit in the hotel or have to drive back all the way by herself. It's just, I feel like it's a waste of money. She wouldn't get the full experience. Some DJs are better than others on certain days. There are days where it's split, so I wouldn't know what day to pick. She also hasn't been to a festival, so I don't know her genre, what vibe she goes with. So I wouldn't want her to waste a couple $100 to go for a day and then her not have a good time and have to drive back. And then God forbid she can't hack that day. It's like, well, they just got a base hit. So shit. God forbid she can't handle it and we got to leave early. I'm going to be furious and I'm going to be mad at myself for telling her to come when I know she shouldn't have. So we just kind of keep it separate. She does her things on her own. I do my one thing on my own. So it's all good.
Well, at least you have the boundaries for personal space set up pretty well. So
yeah. And like I said, it's the one thing. I don't go on a lot of trips by myself. I don't really leave the house. I'm very much a homebody the older I've gotten, especially because of, me just wanting to save money and play video games and stuff like that. So I'm a pretty simple person.
Yeah, it's just all I know what's going to happen is essentially when you go to EDC that weekend, I know you're going to document the entire freaking weekend. I already know it.
I'm not, though, because remember last time I went, I got my phone stolen. I'm going to have my fanny pack. I'm not taking my phone out. I'm having it locked on my chest. Dude, there is not a chance I'm taking my phone out unless it's when we just get there and I'm trying to get signal or something, or if I'm trying to find my group if we get split, which is impossible because there's never service there. But, I learned my lesson last time. I'm going to have a nice tight fanny pack, strap it as tight as I can to my chest, and basically walk around like this. I got pickpocketed. A New Yorker got pickpocketed at EDC. But there were also over 700 phones reported stolen in that weekend. So it wasn't just me.
Yeah. I didn't know it was 700 though. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, bro. Dude, the police department in Orlando had over 1,000 requests between fighting, drunken misconduct, drunken disorderly, all that, and then phone stolen. Bro, they caught one of the thieves and emptied 3 or 4 backpacks worth, and there were hundreds upon hundreds of phones.
Really?
Yeah. You're surrounded by thousands of people. It's not like a concert where everybody's kind of chilling. This is one where you're jumping up and down with the beats and stuff. So all it takes is one person to just nip you. It's gone.
Yep, that's all it takes.
So yeah, I'm good with that. We've rambled so much about this shit.
Yeah, but no, have a good time, bro. That'll be fun. I know it's not till not next week, but the week after. But
no, it's next week. I leave Thursday night or Friday morning. Excuse me.
I should say Thursday. Not this weekend, but next weekend.
Yeah,
that's probably the better way to say it. But no, that'll be fun, bro. So yeah, bro. Let's wrap this up. So
yeah,
but yeah, just to kind of end things here, you guys. Once again, thank you guys for supporting the podcast, whether it's listening to us on the audio platforms or on our YouTube channel or on Instagram or TikTok. We definitely appreciate you guys. Kevin and I will be back next week. We'll go over some of the Week 9 games that we discussed throughout the episode. If there are any other pop-up games that catch our attention, we may set aside a segment for one of those games. Obviously, the World Series will... I don't know... When does this thing actually end? So, Game 7, if there were a Game 7, would be on Sunday. If the series gets wrapped up before then obviously we'll have a segment for it. If not, we'll probably be recording when that game is going on, if there is a Game 7 between the Phillies and the Astros. So time will kind of tell on that one. But no, that's pretty much the slate that we have for you guys. Content's going to be flowing. So hopefully you guys enjoy what we're dropping and just continue to support us. But Kev, that's all I got to say. You can take us on home, bro.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it on up for us. We will see you guys again Sunday. We appreciate the support and hope you guys have a great weekend.
Is our